Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief Recap. We'll try and get this done in good 10-15 minutes and send you on your way. As I've sort of said recently, dashboard's still being built out. Can't wait to the point where I can do a lot of commentary off of it, but we're still in our developer cycle. So we'll pop on over to our preloaded chart deck and we'll talk specifically off of this. So what are we seeing in the market today? Fed Chairman Powell came out yesterday speaking, and we talked, of course, on the site lots about how he had two speeches, one yesterday and one today. And how that sort of spooked the market to a certain degree, but the market seems to have recovered. I'm hearing more talk about trade talks with China, delegation here in North America getting down to business, and they were even conceding on a couple of issues. So I guess the general tone is today we're back into a risk-on kind of environment. And specifically, you'll notice, and we've sort of talked about this recently, is Bitcoin actually a leading indicator here in the risk-on space? Yeah, just as it broke down ahead of everybody else last week, it appears that it's trying to bottom and turn back up ahead of everybody else. You can see, earlier in the daily brief, all of these words were off of where the market was then. Interesting to see oil now has backed off a little bit. So now it's losing its double bottom that was in earlier. And Bitcoin continues to press higher. Bonds, I've been talking about this, and specifically with regard to risk-off assets. I've been talking about this trade setup, potential setups coming in, and really I wanted to hunt for location. And ironically enough, of the three risk-off assets, the one market that I didn't think that was actually going to produce a trade idea is the one market that did produce a trade. So go figure. It just goes to show in the market, you never know what the hell's going to happen. But as you can see here, I had drawn reload zones. And the bonds worked their way up politely right up into a reload zone, even tried to get into a gap, and then were violently rejected. And yesterday's commentary from Mr. Powell, sort of, as I had said, he sort of put I think they'll probably call it the Powell put into the stock market, saying he'll go and buy back bonds. He'll do whatever he has to do to make sure that the growth continues. Anyway, look at it, especially in the light of, well, maybe China and U.S. Trade negotiations are going to make progress, whatever. The bond market actually gapped lower. So that trade looks like it's doing perfectly fine. Keep in mind, yes, I did buy some put options on the stock market over here. So they're in the money nicely. But I did conjecture, and, frankly speaking, I thought we were heading into a risk-on kind of environment. I suppose any sort of negative talk from the diplomats in Washington right now, I'll put the kibosh on that. But I did sort of suggest that, I had drawn these sort of resistance lines earlier last week, and we pulled back against a trend channel here. And I had actually thought maybe we could work our way right back up into that original topping location as those bonds work their way lower. You never know what's going to happen in the market, but I'm very comfortable just sitting on my stock market puts, and really that window to be short doesn't really close for another it's about a week or so before I'm really going to be starting to think about, okay, I got to start, just hopping off this short and actually thinking about calls. And that's sort of in line with this kind of thinking, right, where I'm looking for maybe a counter trend rally, then another dump, sort of like this kind of action. And then into that sort of middle part of the window, it maybe sets up for this kind of counter trend rally on the other side. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, the point of the matter here, risk on assets are catching a bit of a bid today. Risk off assets are coming off. and I was actually pretty impressed with the violence in the Japanese yen breakdown. They usually say gold and yen move in conjunction. I'm a bit surprised, and I don't know what the fundamental reason is, but gold's hanging in here. But you can see the bonds and the yen are both coming off smartly. Moving over to the stock market, we had our TRI-SOF meeting last night. Because of this sort of window to buy new long positions isn't for another week or so, and really it's about 10 or 11 days. So really it could be a couple weeks because that still is floating out there. I haven't really, pounded the table on any sort of new setups or anything. But I did find it kind of interesting, and it's sort of why I've included this in today's conversation. I've said that I wanted to be long these blockchain stocks, and I have on the screen here this riot, and you can see how it painted an inside bar, which painted a daily W off the dailies down in here. I bought that, and I promptly got stopped out when it broke the bottom. But interestingly enough, and this is sort of the vulgarities of trading different plans, ironic, so my stock purchase, I had to walk away from it. I just didn't have any choice. I was going to follow my plan. I followed my plan. But interestingly enough, through this, our last TRI-SOF meeting, we actually reviewed, when this thing was still working, we reviewed the TRI-SOF principle and its model, and it actually said that it was okay to go out and buy 6 months of time on this stock, and I think we bought like the $3 call, and we paid like 30 cents for it or something. But ironically enough, we had to actually get this dump to new lows to actually get filled on the damn order, so go figure. So in a weird sort of way, one plan, my own personal stock trading plan, it got busted out on this failure of this W. In another plan, a derivatives trading plan, it actually met the criteria, and I actually went and bought some call options here looking for this rally sometime down the pike. For individual stock purchases, I'm going to have to still now wait for some sort of signs of a W here before I can start getting bullish again. Maybe it looks something along those lines. I don't know. But I just wanted to report to you guys, it's kind of ironic that our derivatives plan, the only trade that I've done here over the past few days, is we actually got filled on some really cheap, lots of time value, out of the money options on this thing. So, but as you can see, I've drawn on the chart here. For those that are very sharp and on the ball, I've often said this, where you often have like your first setup fails, and then, hunt for any sort of signs of W's, don't lose focus, and boom, in came another buy signal here. So that's the vulgarities of trading. It happens, but as it stands right now, I'm just going to simply wait for another W. And really, ironically enough, what I'd actually like to see, because if I'm not mistaken, no, I can't see it. Maybe it was off of this one here. Yeah, okay, so it was this one. We had 1, 2, 3 tags of this trend line. Now, and this is just this one particular trend line, on the break of this particular trend line, if I can get a W that comes in here, then I'm okay. But I don't like how we have this trend line here. My hunch is this thing rallies up, probably fills in the gap, stalls against this trend line, and then we have to go through the process of Wing. So I'm still interested in being a shareholder of this company. It's just there's nothing I can do right now. And FYI, our derivatives plan actually did buy calls here. Not a heck of a lot of money, a few $100, Heading on over to crypto proper. If anything, what I'm kind of seeing, and we've talked about this a bit lately, The dominance ratio broke down violently, and it was going one directional. I suppose you could draw AB equals CDs, looking for some sort of panic dump event. And keep in mind this is a daily off of this. Intraday it might have actually hit that. But just as we sort of seen here, often, and they call these Wyckoff checks. There's a pretty famous market technician that lived about 100 years ago that used to, he sort of coined this term. But you'll notice as we break out, and then we come back and we check the original breakout to actually just validate that, yeah, the breakout's for real. And you notice we did sort of the same sort of thing here. Breakout, come back and check the original breakout. It wasn't exact, but it was close. So, and then you also notice it here to a certain degree. Breakout, come back and check the original breakout. So it also sort of works on the other direction as well. So breakdown, check of the original breakdown point. Breakdown, and what I'm thinking, and sort of what I suggested in the daily brief today, is now we're getting that check of the breakdown level from the other side, which is very normal. It's actually pretty healthy price action. And if we were actually looking for trend line resistance, we could actually see that dominance get all the way back up into sort of that 70 area before it runs into some serious resistance. So in a weird sort of way, and we kind of talked about this in the daily brief with regard to Bitcoin, maybe it was a little overdue for a bit of a counter trend rally. It's interesting on this particular chart, and I had these off of the weeklies, but we can adjust this to the daily. You can see how we're right back flirting with this original downtrend line off of the top. So nothing really has changed a heck of a lot here. I was really proud and pleased on the site, OGers. We're reporting, and probably the best place to look at this is on Coinbase. We talked in yesterday's video about harmonic patterns that actually painted this as a PRZ. Market rallied smartly, and then through the daily brief we picked apart this smaller harmonic that painted a short, and it turns out that was a really good example where the harmonic guys forced themselves to take partial profits at 38.2s. Move your stops to scratch on remaining, and in this case, those shorts the remaining were stopped out at scratch. I suppose if you did the same logic going the other direction, right, 38.2 off of this range, had you taken this bullish setup, would have been take partial profits here, stop to scratch on remaining, and you'd still be in that long. And you might be in that long for a long time. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that, long setups came in. They seem to work for the harmonic guys. Short setups came in. They partially worked. Stops got busted out at scratch on whatever was remaining. And then what was really interesting, and Kevin, my co-host here, he's turned into one hell of a good trader. He had sort of pointed this out on things like the Kraken chart, that as we were coming into these new lows, notice MACD did not make new lows. And then the market sort of politely puts in the W. Remember I said anybody would hit this harmonic level up here, they'd have their stops basically at that sort of, that double bottom. That double bottom actually turned into a triple bottom. You also notice those people that are following trend lines. We had a trend line break, take the first W on the other side of the trend line. Here it comes. You notice that this also gave you the opportunity to front run the bot level, 82.56. And zing, 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 up we go. So I think that the lower time frame, this is off of the hourly charts. Those people, they got themselves actually a pretty nice trade. Now, this is kind of the conversation about the vulgarities of crypto. Notice we did not hit the 100% objective here on Kraken. But if you go over to Coinbase, gee whiz, when you draw up these levels, we have hit that. This is the vulgarities of trading crypto of so many different exchanges. So, for the people that have not had their targets hit, we've kind of suggested through the daily brief, maybe do something like, because we had move stop to trailing levels, and now you just simply use market structure. And if this thing does M out, then you got to hop off. And notice this move stop to trailing level here, 13 EMA now is basically that same level. So, some people like to use 13 EMA cross for their move stop to trailing level. Regardless, you should be locking in profits, whatever method you use, on this setup had you taken it. I think sort of bigger picture, what I think might be happening now is we talked about how 50% level off the higher time frame was acting as resistance. And now we're going through the process of simply asking whether we do actually want to accept back above this level. As I said, if we see failure off these lower time frames and things start crapping out, we think look left, this thing could come racing right back down into the original bottoming level. So I think that this sort of test, this ask of, where'd the chart go? Whether we're going to accept above the 50% level, I think this is still ongoing. And really what we'd like to see to know that we have accepted above the 50% level is show me some structure. Give me a W, something up here to say that, yep, we've accepted back above. For now, and notice, just off of this price range, this is value here. So what this really means is we need to see buyers actually step up and say, yep, this is a bull I want to buy, and we need to see value get pushed higher here. And what I would suggest, and we sort of talked about this in the daily brief, was, we talked to you in the public video yesterday about this. Were we going to oscillate back to 50% level? We're doing that right now. Can we accept back above 30 SMA on the weeklies? And if we can, right, and I think, as I said, this battle, this ask of whether we're going to accept 50% level, we're going to accept above 30 SMA, that question is being asked right now. And if that question comes out positive, then you can see that 13 EMA on the weeklies is basically right off of these structural fail levels. And we've talked recently about this, think Wyckoff check. What usually should happen is we should come and check the original breakdown level from the other side now. And notice, if I just eyeball that, that's 9,300, just a check from the other side. And then we go back to that chart that I was showing you there a moment ago. And you notice that a replication of this range above there takes us up to that 9,300 area. So that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. Big question going on right now. Do we accept above 50% level? If we do, then my hunch is probably 9,300 is the next stop on our wonderful journey here. All right, so I hope that summarizes everything I wanted to talk to you guys about. I know I've talked way too much here today. Higher time frames, as we'd sort of said, we've got our day trading model here working. It's on the sidelines right now because the 4 hours and the dailies are disagreeing. Dailies are still pointing down. That hasn't changed. And as I had said earlier, what I'm kind of thinking is we need an underside tag of all these key lows. On that underside tag, and then if we consolidate and turn back up, then that'll turn the daily chart back up. So as you can sort of see, we're at that weekly, or actually this is daily, but we're at that key trend line here. I think that in essence the underside breaks the trend line, we go up, we kiss those levels, and then as I've said repeatedly all along here, if we can W on the other side of the trend line, then we got something to work with off the higher time frames. As I said, I've talked way too much here today, so I think I'll probably leave it at that. We'll maybe talk about altcoins some more another day. Things are looking uppy, so it doesn't look bad. That little Litecoin inside bar reversal we reported yesterday seems to be gaining some traction here. And then, I also wanted to talk a little bit. I had suggested that, and I am talking about it now, so go figure. But I suggested that names, that sort of Bitcoin dominance kind of conversation, names that have these very wide W's working versus Bitcoin, I don't mind taking shots off of them. I said I was going to, so I did. And I'll just risk to a break of these lows. I'm Joe six-packing this. Anybody who understands risk models understands what I mean by that. So live by the sword, die by the sword. If this W breaks, then I'll just walk away. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that for today. Have yourselves a great afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. All the best, and bye for now.